first part I mentioned 4 findings conclusions based on 15 years experience as innovative entrepreneur. I'll repeat those because I'm going to connect them to a case where we dealt with a big company, in this case an NGO, which stole our innovation. So again, in short, the 4 findings conclusions. First is the immoral behavior of big companies towards creative entrepreneurs. Second, government innovation funds are not serving startups. They are aimed at big companies, big financially strong companies, and on top of that, politicians of mainly the established political parties, they are convinced that only big companies can innovate successfully. Third, the abuse of power by big companies who have access to these funds and who have means of themselves. They abuse the power because they know when they are looking for creative ideas that the smaller companies that they will approach for these ideas do not have the power to finance the innovation by themselves. So they will take advantage in a negotiation, and even worse, they might just go for a fishing expedition, a brain pig expedition, and then let them leave again. And fourth is there's no legal aid protection for the smaller companies who have IP related issues, because they will go to their legal aid insurance, and they will hear it's not part of your insurance, it's not covered, which makes them they have to then find a lawyer and pay out of their own pocket for an IP case that's very, very expensive. So these are the main findings, conclusions. I will explain in relation to a specific case how this happened to us and what has happened to us. It is related to an innovation which can be described as a new way of transferring money. The concept behind it is to facilitate diaspora people who now use Western Union to transfer money to relatives in developing countries. However, this money is most of the time not used for what it's meant for. So the idea is, so the innovation, it's not the idea because it's an innovation and already was implemented. We created a service where you could go online. Let's say you live in the Netherlands and you're originally from Kenya, and now you want to help your brother who still lives in Kenya. So you go online, you select medical insurance, and you connect it to the ID of your brother. And your brother then has to go to the insurance company in Kenya to register his ID. And we invented a solution where this is done by fingerprint and photo. So the fingerprint could be taken by a USB fingerprint scanner connected to the PC. This ID would be gathered and then sent back to the system, and the website would show this is your brother, he's registered now, so we can finalize the payment for the medical insurance, and now your brother has access to the best healthcare possible in Kenya. Taking the next step in realizing this innovation meant we had to find partners. So I went to Kenya and had a meeting with Safaricom. Safaricom is the Vodafone branch in Kenya. I explained the concept I also explained what was needed to market it, because we had to create awareness for the service, and they absolutely loved it. However, they wanted to see if the product worked. So I went back to the Netherlands, I spoke to my team, we decided to create a prototype, and we decided to find other stakeholders that are necessary to make this a success, to build the ecosystem. So we approached an NGO specialized in health schemes, insurance schemes. And the NGO was also very positive. They liked it because now they are implementing these insurance schemes based on public money, and because of our invention, our innovation, they could now do it based on private money. So we had our first talks, and before they wanted to continue, I had to meet with an advisor, at that time a key political person of one of the biggest political parties. After I had coffee and some cake, if I'm correct, I went home, and the next day I was informed by the NGO that they wanted to continue. So they asked us to deliver a business plan, which we did, and we asked them to sign a letter of intent, which they refused. So we were still giving them the benefit of the doubt, because we were like, it's an NGO, so they have high morals, they would never just use us, it's impossible. So we left it. And then, let me see, I have to be completely precise, the steps that happened, that's why I've written it down. So then we had a meeting with the operational director. It's important to remember, because he will come back later in this story. And we prepared, with our own resources and our own money, a pilot in Cameroon, with the help of the ambassador. So the talks continued. The letter of intent was not signed. However, this NGO told us they would connect us to a fund, an investment fund that they worked with, in order to get our project financed, which of course didn't happen. So again, we already planned to do the pilot in Cameroon to show that it technically works. After this result, we contacted them again, and they were still positive, and they wanted to have some last information, some more information, and all of a sudden in 2009, end of 2009, so this is 2.5 years later, they said, no, it's too early, the technology is too advanced, we cannot do this, we just need to continue the way we are going right now. So we decided to change our plan and look for another partner. By coincidence, I bumped into a person of APG, which is a pension fund, and he was blown away by the film that we shot of the project in Cameroon. And he said, you really need to talk to this person within APG. It's another department, it's called IFHA, because he's gonna love it. So he connected us to this person. He sent an email explaining everything about the innovation and how far we are, and basically our track record. And then a funny thing happened, because we received a reply, reply from a person which probably thought that we had forgotten all about him, because this is 2011. And the content of this email is the following. It's written down in Dutch, so I'll translate it. Dear Mr. Falkenreck, I received the input from APG and all your information. It's very hard for us to assess if it's interesting for us to invest in your innovation, because we need to know a little bit more. the email by itself is perfectly normal, but it's not normal if you consider that the operational director I've been talking about earlier on is the same guy who is in charge of this investment fund. So this person knew every detail of our business plan and was blocking us from getting access. Speaking of a conflict of interest. So this was totally set up. We were totally being blocked from getting any access to this fund, because they were working on their own product launch, which we found out later. And how did I find out later? Because in 2016 I was just watching TV, beginning of the evening, and I tuned into a very popular talk show program in the Netherlands. And on March 14th, the managing director of this NGO presented a new service, and it was exactly what we had developed and discussed and tested in the years before. So the guy was totally shameless. He acted as if it was his own invention. He was so proud to present it, and it was all stolen. He even introduced his partner in Africa, in Kenya, which was Safaricom, the partner that I introduced to them. So this is how bizarre it is. And yeah, what can I add to this case? What's quite important, of course, I decided to take legal steps. And that's when I found out that I could not get any support because it was an IP related matter. The luck I had is that the legal insurance aid had not paid attention, so they did initially help me, but after 6 months they found out it had to do with IP, and therefore I got a phone call: we cannot continue this case anymore because it's IP related. I did gather in the 6 months very crucial information for proving my case, that it was an innovation theft, and that's why I've written it down. So this is the case I wanted to discuss. It's a recap, of course, but I'm just trying to explain that in the world we live in today, as a creative entrepreneur, you are totally blocked and handicapped, and it's done in a malicious way. So the politicians only cater for the big companies, for the NGOs. The big companies, they brain pick from the creative entrepreneurs because they do not have any creativity. They even make you test it, show how it's done, so they are absolutely sure they're not making any mistakes. And then on top of that, you have to find out you cannot even follow up on it by starting a legal case. So that's how sad it is. To add the aftermath, I should call it, after writing the book, I had a meeting with a member of parliament of another big political party, and I told him this story, and many others, by the way. He was listening, and I got his attention the moment I shared a radio interview, which was on a very known channel. And in this radio interview, they shared my analysis about the immoral innovation culture. And this was shared and discussed with a big shot entrepreneur in the Netherlands who has a reputation. And this person confirmed my analysis. So I had the full attention of this politician. And he promised me, of course, all the best he could do, etc., etc. And I decided to follow him after my meeting. And the funny thing is, one of his first posts on LinkedIn was him visiting a big company where he was proud to announce that they had given them access to an innovation fund. So I reacted to the post and asked him, how is it possible that you give a considerable amount of innovation money to a big, financially stable company which has its own R&D budgets? And then he said, and I have it because it was written on LinkedIn, what's wrong with allocating money towards a big, financially strong company? Because it's better to do that than to give it to, basically he was saying, to companies that are not stable and not successful, because that's the waste of money. So he was implying that only big companies are able to innovate successfully, and when you're not a big company and you're not established, then basically you're an amateur and there's no chance for you to succeed. So I was flabbergasted with his response, because for me there was a confirmation that this political party only caters for multinationals, for big companies. And to make the matter worse, last week, no, this week actually, yeah, this week, I read an article in the financial newspaper in the Netherlands, where this same guy was responsible for an amendment where in case of difference between two companies, let's make it tangible by giving an example. Let's say you are a relatively small company or a middle large company, and you have an NDA which is signed by a big company, and you start a project, and the big company breaches this NDA. So you decide to go to court to make sure you get compensated for them breaching the NDA. Right now, if you lose this court case, then you only have to pay the process cost, and that's it. But this political party now changed it and made sure that you also have to pay the lawyer cost, which means that any small company that has a collaboration or starting collaboration with a big company, where the big company steals the idea or breaches in any other form the contract, will never ever take a decision to go to court and to sue them. Because if they lose, they not only have to pay the process cost, but also have to pay the cost of the lawyer of this big company. So then they are really in deep shit. So this whole story hopefully gives you an insight in what happens in the world of innovation, seen through the eyes of an innovative entrepreneur who is not in charge of a company that exists 15 years, that has a turnover of 120 million, that has 300 FTE. So just for you to understand that it's a totally different story when you are a small, innovative entrepreneur, and you have to deal with the handicaps that are put in place at this moment in time. This is one case, and on the platform where this is broadcasted, you will find many other cases where entrepreneurs share their experiences, and hopefully this is helpful for you. So the insights will make you aware, and hopefully also you become more alert and find a way to deal with this. And of course, speaking for myself, I'm trying to create changes resulting in a better innovation climate and a better innovation culture. So this is a small step in doing that. I want to thank you for listening, for watching this video, and I'll probably share some more cases